Hello friends of WildRift and welcome back to another RiftGuides WildRift video, and today we're going to take a look at the HIGHELO tier list for the current patch. But before we hop into it, let's talk about our question of the day. What do you think about Legendary Queue? For me, it's kind of a mixed feeling because Legendary Queue is supposed to be that kind of mode that helps us all have more enjoyable games. But yet again, Riot fell short and the elo gains are too high, and people that should never be even close to the high elo bracket are just in there and ruining games. I'm already Legend and it's just very unfun to play, so I'll probably not touch the mode again until next season to then rush Legend again. For our first pick of the top lane or Baron lane, we have Fiora. Fiora as a champion, as per usual, you already know is gonna be dominating throughout the laning phase. It's all about using your lunge ability properly and going for those vitals. In the past, you would always go for Grasp of the Undying to empower your laning phase just a little bit more. That makes your lunge trades even more toxic. But with the changes to Conqueror in the past and it healing you from true damage now once it's fully stacked, it became a really good force to reckon with when you want to play Fiora. Fiora is a champion that loves to duel, and in those duels any kind of healing is very important, which is why you'll see a lot of Divine Sunders as your first item because it's just broken, and then you add Conqueror to the mix, the healing just becomes very absurd, especially once you think about your ultimate and the damage it's dealing in terms of raw numbers when you fight tanks or anything that has high HP. Because don't forget, it deals a maximum percent HP damage in true damage, which will then heal you for a percentage because of Conqueror. Also, don't forget that you get more raw AD, which then increases the scaling of that even more. To give you a little trick that most Fiora players are simply just forgetting is that you should always consider your second ability a valid choice for level 2. With this, you can completely invalidate an enemy's trait and just run them down from that point on. Every laning phase, every mistake matters, and with your second ability you can force the enemy to commit to mistakes, which then allows you to carry the game. And this is our full tier list for the Baron lane. Next up on this list comes Warwick for the jungle role. Warwick is one of those news champions that have been released into the game, and Warwick is kinda weird compared to other champions. Warwick is a very high stat champion that will simply stat check you. What does this mean? Warwick will just run you down, and if he's slightly stronger than you or has even gold, he will just kill you. That's literally all there is to it. Other than this, he can get kited very easily and he's just a damage punching bag for most other champions, especially if they have CC or a lot of range capabilities. However, if you put Warwick into a side situation or isolated 1v1 and maybe 2v2 situations, Warwick can take over very fast from the early to mid game. This champion, especially in the jungle role, is super easy to pilot. You just have to clear your camps and your second ability will literally tell you what is going on the map, which then allows you to go for ganks. You can also get a little bit more creative with your champion because of the movement speed bonus from your second ability. Rather than approaching head on, you can come from behind and just attack them with an ambush and just get them killed. Especially for mid lane or other lanes, it's super easy to do and you'll find very high success rates doing so. From my perspective, the two strongest spike items at this moment are Blade of the Ruined King and Divine Sunderer. Warwick's first ability heals you off a percentage amount of damage dealt, which then with the Divine Sunderer makes things even more powerful. And don't forget that Warwick's ultimate applies on hit effects, which means it will apply the first hit of the Divine Sunderer and all of the consecutive hits of Blade of the Ruined King. Well, since you're running lethal tempo, and if you ult somebody on full health before that, you'll get them into the execute range for your second ability, which increases your attack speed even more, and then you'll have an easier time just attacking them down without any kind of problem. And this is our full tier list for the jungle role. For the mid lane, we have the typical anime villain superstar, Yone. Yone as a champion is the typical hyper-scaling monster. You can imagine him as an AD carry in melee form. However, this AD carry has a shortcut to being powerful. AD carries usually need 3 to 4 items to do anything, but Yone just needs 1 item. Kinda funny. And if he has 2 items, he basically pretends that he has 4 items because of the way he scales. If you go crit, that is. However, in WildRift, Blade is the best first item you can go for on this champion. It gives you everything you require in terms of attack speed, bonus damage, sustain, and anything you want to make sure you're snowballing properly. With that into your bag, you can just run them down and enjoy your time. But there's something you need to understand when it comes to Yone. Yone is not necessarily known as a brute forcing champion. Being aware of a fight and how the fight may develop is one of the most strategic values you can have. And for Yone, it's one of the most important values you need to have in you. You need to understand where a fight is going to take place and then use the jungle environment to maybe pre-stack your first ability and then use for angles with your third ability to get into the backline or line them up like lambs to the slaughter. Once you do this, you'll get impact almost immediately, and if you tag them, you provide so much CC and damage, you'll turn the tide of the fight into your favor almost instantaneously, with just one single press of a button. It is amazing, and this champion is just borderline unbalanced, and well, let's be honest, he needs some changes, but it's not gonna happen because he's too hard to execute in most situations. And this is our full tier list for the mid lane. The next champion on this tier list is Caitlyn for the AD carry role. Caitlyn is a very lane dominant champion, and if you understand what to do with her, you can have high impact for almost every game, unless your team is actively griefing you. But for Caitlyn, there's one thing you also need to know. Attacking from a brush grants you double stacks for your passive, which means you have more damage in a faster way. Another thing you have to understand is that your trap placement on Caitlyn is the most vital thing possible. Let's pretend that you're sieging an enemy tier 1 bot lane tower. With that, you can place traps to the right and left of the tower and force the enemy to walk in certain ways. You can maybe even zone them off of last hits, which will cut their gold income a little bit short. All those little intricacies matter because they can allow you to snowball. With that done, you can also do the same around objectives. You can ward off an entire pathway, and if the enemy walks through that pathway, you can auto-tag, use your third ability, your first ability, and just blast him into the next season. And don't forget, Caitlyn as a champion is a champion that loves to scale. She is decently well on one item in the sense of running people down with the Stormrazor, but then afterwards on her third and fourth item she becomes crazy. Lethal tempo then kicks really in hard because of the attack speed you have already, and then you just become a Gatling gun, a walking Gatling gun that guns down everything in its way. To achieve that, you need to understand that AD carry as a role needs gold, and AD carries need to run around the map properly, rotate very well, and take all the gold there is to scale super fast, because there's nothing more useless than an AD carry without gold. Oh yeah, and there's one rule for AD carries that is mostly overlooked, but it applies to every other player in the game already. Dying is really painful. Please don't die, minimize your death as much as possible and get as much gold as possible. Any time you spend being dead is time you don't get gold, and AD carry without gold, as I said before, useless. And this is our full tier list for the AD carry role. For our last pick of this patch, we have Support Ashe. Support Ashe, you might be saying, wait, this guy is trolling, but no, it's not really troll. Ashe Support is a proactive champion that loves to accelerate the game and dictate the fight before the fight even happens. You can imagine Ashe as a similar champion that wants to go for picks, such as Camille and all those kind of champions. With this, you have a decent laning phase because you have another ranged champion with decent damage in terms of poke spell and also rundown potential. But here's something you're most likely not even considering beforehand. Her third ability, the Hawk Shot, has the ability to detect wards and the enemy jungler. With this, you can help yourself and your team not getting caught by any of the shenanigans the enemy jungle is going to inflict upon your teammates. But in terms of how you want to play it, it's relatively simple. For laning, you most of the time use your ult attack into your second ability and just poke out the enemy. For the game later on, all you need to do is use your ultimate in the best way possible and go for picks. With those picks happening, you already changed a numbers advantage game into your favor, and therefore it's more likely for you to win, because in solo queue, even if people are stronger, they'll easily shy away from a fight because they are one person down. For Ashe, it's about finding those picks and finding those consistently. The more you get, the more gold you'll gain for your teammates, and especially with champions in combination such as Lux, you make life living hell for the enemy team. And this is our full tier list for the support role. That's it for today's video. Thank you all for watching, and if you want more RiftGuides content, make sure to leave the like and subscribe button and come back for more content. See you soon.